Test, test. 1, 2. We're going to do this.
They can hear them, but they can't hear you. Oh.
Test, test. 1, 2. Okay. Test, 1, 2. All right, now we're good. Now we're going to really start this meeting. Once again, those of you joining live on the Timeout with PSOA YouTube channel, we'd like to welcome our guest NSAA observers, Jeff Pazel from Norfolk, Nebraska, Mike Peters from Omaha, Nebraska, Sly Thomas from Omaha, Nebraska, and John Dolliver from Malcolm, Nebraska, the Director of Basketball Officials for the state of Nebraska. Guys, thank you for taking time out with PSOA tonight and sharing your experience as a NSAA basketball observer. What we'll do here, we'll start with introductions. So guys, if you could talk about how many years you've been an official and observer and what areas of the state you'll be observing this year. So Jeff, we'll start with you.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for the opportunity to be on tonight. This is a great thing that you've got going on, and I'm humbled for the opportunity. I've been in the officiating ring. This is 38 years now. It'll be going into my 8th year within the observer role that's been going on. As far as Northeast Nebraska, little bit maybe on the eastern side of Nebraska. I'll go honestly wherever I'm asked to go, depending on who we need to see. But pretty much I stay in that bulk of that Northeast Nebraska and go anywhere within a couple hours whenever it takes place. So looking forward to this meeting. Thanks again.
And thanks for being here. Mike, go ahead and take it over.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Mike Peters from Omaha, and I officiated football and basketball, both sports, for about 35 years. I've been with the NSAA as an observer, not quite sure the exact number, but it's 20 plus years. John, how long you been with the NSAA?
I've been with the NSAA 13 years, Mike.
Yeah, so it's close to it's 20 or a little more than that, but I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I appreciate getting asked back every year.
Sly, go for it.
Did I have to unmute, Sly?
Sly, you're going to have to unmute, big boy, and start over.
All right, let's start all over again. Hey, again, Sean, thanks for having me. My name is Sly Thomas, and this is my 4th year as an NSAA evaluator. I officiated basketball for 25 years. I do mostly the Omaha area. I'll venture out sometimes to Weeping Water, other places that some officials may need to be seen. So, but again, thanks for having me.
All right, Sly, appreciate you being here. And then John Dolliver, you already said you were with the NSAA for 13 years. Sort of talk about what you do throughout the season when you go out and are in the gyms.
Yeah, so I've been at the NSAA 13 years, and I apologize. I'm driving a little bit right now, so you might hear some things as I'm driving. But I appreciate the 3 guys that you do have on. They've been a valuable asset to me. I was a basketball coach. I was an athletic administrator. I was never a basketball official, and I've never claimed to be. So my understanding of what's going on with basketball officiating has been something that I've learned over the last 13 years, and I've learned from some of the best. And 3 of the guys that are on here right now have helped me learn a tremendous amount of about officiating the game of basketball. And so, yeah, so for me, when I go out like and watch basketball games right now, it's something that has been an acquired taste for me, because as a coach, you look at the game way different than you do as an official. And I actually get the role now of being a parent. And so I've been able to do some of those things. And the last 13 years have been a tremendous educational experience for me. Not only for just me personally, but for the people that surround me, because I'm now an advocate for officials and trying to help people understand what officials do and how they look at a game. And I'm so honored to have the job that I have and be able to do what I do. So, Sean, I appreciate what you do and having all of us on tonight.
Well, I'm glad we were able to bring together just a great group so we could give sort of different perspectives of not only how officials are observed, but the real reason behind the observations and evaluations. And this will be our agenda this evening. We're going to go over how to enter the schedule in the NSAA website, and officials, how important it is we do our part so the observers can make their schedule. So they'll talk about how they make their schedules using that website. The pregame importance, we teach officials. We are evaluated from the moment we park our cars and walk into the gym. So the observers will sort of give some feedback of what they look for when they're out at gyms. Observation form explanation. I'll show a previous observation form that was filled out on myself, and then each of the observers will talk about how they use that form, and it might be different from the newer official versus veteran official. All these observers for many years have been going down to the state tournament to observe officials, and I think they do a little bit different role than regular season. And then if you're registered with the state, I hope you have a goal of working postseason, whether that's sub-districts, districts, or potentially state tournament. But then the observers will help give tips of what is in our control to get those postseason assignments. So I am going to switch my screen here to my NSAA website.
New screen share. Make sure it's on the right.
So once you log into your NSAA home page, and I have my December schedule in here, and I made a mistake on purpose. All right, but it's a simple. You want to put the date. And officials, I know I've made this mistake in the past. In January, make sure you switch it over to 2024 because it's hard to observe games that have already been played. All right, but if I was going to put on a game for January 2nd, 2024, boys, we'll go Weeping Water. If I know the team's involved, Weeping Water versus Syracuse. Let's say that game's going to start at 6 o'clock. 3-person crew, and I'll just type in Jeff Kopetsky and Kevin Cook. Now once I do that, add entry, I want to make sure I put it in correctly, because if I made an error like I did here, I misspelled Amy Harm's name, I want to edit that. Or, as schedule always happens as an assigner, your partners change. So whenever you have a change in your schedule, you want to go into this NSAA website and update your schedule so the observers who have chosen to take time out to go watch officials, they have all the correct information. So with that being said, Jeff, how do you use this website to make your schedule to determine how and when you're going to go observe?
Well, you touched on a lot of it, Sean. But we have the opportunity to, if I know, I'll first of all look up a schedule and see what schools may have, games. I'll look on the NSA website to find out where the schools that are in my area. Then I'll dig a little deeper, go into the schedules, see who's working a specific game, and if I've observed that person or if that person's been observed in a recent matter, whether it be an in-person observation or an in-person observation and in a written observation. There's times we'll go out. There may be communication from John and from the office on somebody that we may need to go look at. If that's the case, we'll divulge and find out where that person's at and then be able to go and work and see them. You hit it a little bit when you're talking about schedules. I'm going to be honest with you, and please don't take me wrong when I say this. I'm not meaning it brash, but it's very, very disappointing when you get to a site and the officials that you're supposed to potentially look to observe aren't the officials that are on the game. And I'm just going to be, it takes just a little bit. You folks saw how quick it was for Sean to go in there and do that. Any of an automated system, whether it be on your phone, laptop, what have you, tablet, you can get that done. So we'd appreciate if you get those updated whenever those, because it changes. Obviously, we're short officials the way it is, so it's good to see that those are getting full. But I'll break those down, and the next thing I'll look at and see if we've had a recent observation in the past years, break that down, and then go back. And one of the things I'll look at, maybe we can get into this later too, see what the recommendations that were made, if they've made the adjustments within their work. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess. And schedules are very important, especially when we're looking at schools to see who's on them. Quite honestly, I usually call the school and verify with the administration who the person is, because there's been too many times that I've gone and people haven't been there. So that's where we're at.
All right, Mike, how do you use the website?
I personally, the same thing Jeff said. It's really disappointing when you think you're going to go see somebody and then they're not there. But just please, if you can, like everybody said, make that adjustment or let somebody know that you're not going to be at that game.
Sly, with you being mostly in the Omaha area, do you go gym to gym, or would you search for an official of where they're working?
No, I look on the schedule, the schedule of the games, and I'll try and find somebody that I haven't seen if I'm not asked to see a certain person. I would like to see somebody that I haven't seen before. So I'll do it that way, and then I'll check who they're with, and like Jeff said, how long it's been since they've been seen, or if they have been seen. And that's kind of how I work it.
And then Sly, how about yourself?
Well, I usually reach out to the assigners like yourself and see who are the new officials. I like to try to look at new officials to, at least try to give them some basics, see where they are and what we can do to help them get better. What Mike and I do, I'll make sure that we're not at the same place. I'll give Mike a call to make sure we don't show up at the same location. And our goal, we try to see the men and women within 3 years. If someone happened to be at one of the locations that we're looking at someone else, I may do an evaluation on them, and I'll take a look. The reason for that is to see if they have made the adjustment, just like Jeff and Mike has said. So, but the most important thing, as Jeff and Mike said, put the schedule in. And if your schedule has changed, make the change in the system, because I've showed up a couple places and the official's not there, or the game was played earlier. So I've been through it, and we want to try to give you guys, try to help y'all out, but you got to help us out at the same time. So.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, I'm going to interrupt here just for a quick second. To the three guys, like when you go out, you check it maybe the day before, maybe the morning of, and I get it. Like life happens, like assigners change and games get like reassigned because people get sick or things happen. Is that something that you guys do before you leave that night, or is it something that you do, just the morning of or the day before? How do you guys go about looking at those schedules? Because again, like we have people that, their work may call them to not be there that night. They may get sick. I mean, there's a ton of things that can go on with an official's life. But how often are you guys checking that, or when do you check that to go out that night?
I'll start out on Mondays and just kind of look at the schedule and decide what night I want to go out or who I want to see, and then I'll check it probably the day before I go out.
I would agree with.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mike. Yeah, I would agree with you. Absolutely. Start and set the week out in advance, and then when it for myself, when it gets to that day, I mean, I'll truly check it right before I leave my office and head towards the facility. One other thing, again, my apologies, where it says location, make sure you're actually putting the location there, because sometimes there's tournaments that are being done someplace. So let's say if Wayne State's having their tournament, but Cedar Bluffs and East Butler are playing, we need to make sure that that location is Wayne State College or Wayne High, whatever it may be. Thanks. Sorry, Mike.
That's fine. Thank you.
So this is the same question, but from a different perspective. So this question is for you, John. I know from a state director, when you make postseason assignments, you want familiarity where the officials have seen coaches, coaches have seen the officials. But how do you use these schedules to avoid conflicts of maybe officials seeing a team too much in one season, or commonality with partners, and has these officials worked with partners before?
Yeah, great question, Sean. I mean, probably the biggest thing that I look for is who they work with. Obviously, the conflict lists that people put down, that's what I look at. Like if you have a conflict with Lincoln Southeast, I'm gonna honor that conflict. I look at who they work. I mean, I'm not gonna assign people to work Class A or B games that don't work Class A or B games, because we have a shot clock in both those classes. So if I have you work a Class B game or a Class A game and you've never worked a shot clock in the postseason, that's probably not going to be a good thing to have happen. So I look at the schedule, I look at who they work, and then I look at who they work with, because obviously it's ideal when you have people that work with a lot of different officials that you can assign them with, because you need to be able to have different people available, because believe it or not everybody is available on every single night. And so we do assign people to work on a Monday or Tuesday and maybe even a Thursday with people that, they don't normally work with, but they've worked with maybe one or two times. And so when I look at the schedules, those are the things that I do look for. Like, what are the level of game that they're working? Are they working primarily boys, primarily girls? Class A, Class B, and then who are they working with?
Excellent. So we're going to transition here. So the observers made the decision to go out to a gym on a given night. We'll start with you. When do you typically plan to get at that gym? And then once you are at that gym, what is it that you do for yourself pregame, and what you're looking for the officials to do during that pregame period?
Well, I make sure that I'm at the gym. I just like to be there while officials are in the dressing room. And I don't like to be seen. So I want to watch them, how they really work. So, but one of the things I look at, make sure that they are on the court at 15 minutes. And I do understand, like John said, life happens. Sometimes officials may be late, but if they're later than 15 minutes, we'll talk about that. Just make sure that they go to their positions, U1, U2, and our position. One of the things I would say last season, I know myself, Mike, and a few other observers, we saw some of the officials not go directly to their spots. So we want to try to make sure that just do it like the book says, and you'll be fine. Just want to make sure that the captain, meet the captains, meet the coaches, check the books, and so forth. But again, what I also look at, if U2, U1 are observing their court, make sure they're using that time wisely to check for, make sure the uniforms are correct, making sure there's no illegal with jury or anything like that. And just make sure you use that time to watch how the players play. There may be some great players that are out there. You just want to, again, take time to watch those players. And other than that, just want to make sure. The other thing is when you're at position, if a team happens to go in, sure, you can go down and talk to. You can move down, chat with the R, or if you guys got something to chat about, hey, that's fine. But again, we just want to make sure that you guys go to your positions and just do the right thing while you're there.
So I'm going to pass it off to Jeff. Sly hit a really good point of what we should be doing in pregame and what you're observing. What are the big no-nos that you've witnessed officials do that we should be aware of? Maybe we don't even know we're doing it.
Yeah, some of it I would say too is I guess I look at body language, I look at positioning, where you're supposed to be, and how are you presenting yourself on the floor. All right, this avocation is a profession. There's times that you can see people. Here's one for example. Officials come over, maybe they talk to the coaches. If you talk to this coach for 3 minutes, you better give the other coach 3 minutes because they're going to watch what's going on. Keep it consistent, professional. Don't make anybody look like you're having, a party there with your friends. Another thing I get I don't want to use disappointing, that observant stuff that's going on when I have, officials that are across the way and they're, laughing and joking about things. Don't get me wrong. We got to have fun in this avocation, but you still have a job to do. And your body language is going to tell other people within that group and that crowd of what their perception of you is going to be before the game gets even started. So punctuality, professionalism, and then making sure your positioning and mechanics are where they need to be prior to the game. If you start that off on a good note, your leverage of where you're going to be and the accountability for yourself with the coaches and the rest of the group is going to be above it. Shows you're ready to go.
Mike, we're going to go back to when you were working on the court. What was it that helped you when you were properly in position, watching the players warm up? How did it help you get ready to work that game?
Well, to me, you got your mind on basketball. You don't have your mind talking to your partner or whatever they talk about at mid-court. I like Sly said, I look for jewelry if it's a or even if it's a guy, jewelry, proper uniforms. You can even watch players' moves and maybe catch something that might be important later on in the game. But I think we're all on the same page as far as what we're looking for. The only thing I probably don't do, I try and get there 15 minutes prior to the game because I want to see if they're out on the floor in time. But I normally don't go down to the dressing room prior to the game, basically because I think if I do, I'm distracting them from their pregame. And I think that's very important, especially now that everybody has different partners, different nights, that they need to get a somewhat of a pregame in, so they don't need me in there distracting them.
John, I'm going to take you back to your coaching days now. Jeff was talking about spending the same time from one coach with the other coach. What is it that you did as a coach when those officials walked out of the locker room? Were you paying attention to them at all with their body language and their professionalism?
I will tell you, I was not a very good coach, Sean, so I was not doing those things. But I will tell you, in my role that I've had at the NSAA, one of the things that I've learned real quick is what the officials do and how they interact with the coaches is very, very important. In fact, one of the things we talked to our officials about at state tournament, and I think Jeff touched on this a little bit, but if I call you Sean and I call Mike Peters coach, I've had coaches say, well, they know Sean personally. Well, no, they just remember their name, and so it's about perception. It's about how you interact with them. And so that's the one thing, perception is reality, whether we like it or not. And as an official, it may be harmless. It may be something that you just remembered that person's name because it was your brother's name or it was an easy name to remember. But the interaction with those coaches before games, And then even during the game, I mean, their coaches are perceptive to that. And I wasn't, like I told you, I was not a good enough coach to pick up on that stuff. But I think that our coaches now, I mean, they're picking up on that, and some of it is the fans are picking up on that, and they talk about that kind of stuff. And so anything we can do to make sure that we're just treating people the same way and how we interact with them, I think those are positive things for us as officials, because we come under enough scrutiny when we do things right, wrong, or indifferent. We just need to try to make ourselves and have that ability to make that so that we're doing things that both coaches are treated equally.
Good advice there. We're going to transition here to the observation form. All right, so this is an example that was taken on myself from January 24th, 2021. So Sly, you're actually on the meeting here. So this is an overview of what the observers use when they go out and watch officials work. And then the recommendations for improvement. Officials review this. We heard it. Every observer will look at that. Hey, this is what was recommended in 2021. Did Sean implement this, and is he able to do it? So we'll start with Jeff. Here's your form. Here's your template. What's your checklist of how do you take notes to get all this information out?
Yeah. So when I'm at the site, I'll be honest with you. I work well in the automated world, but I tried taking my laptop and doing it, but had to stop doing that because it was too much challenge, too much quick things going on during the game. So I'll either take a blank form of this and I'll write my notes down as they happen. Depending on the court's coverage, I will put in what period and time that something may have been done that we need to bring up and talk about. I mean, this summary is pretty self-explanatory, especially 1 through 4, and then as you get down with the signals and mechanics. But the bread and butter, in my opinion, comes into the court coverage as lead, trail, and the center official. And then how'd you handle the press coverage? And so once I get back home from all that, or the office, whatever it may be, I'll compile all my notes and then go in here and try to get more of a summary of a Word doc observation on where it's happening. And based on that information, a lot of times what's up on the upper half, when we come down into the bottom for recommendations, for me anyway, there's as much space up there. It'll be in there. A lot of times I'll say, see the above of what has happened, what the recommendations are to improve. So like to give, live examples, especially when you got huddle and you got the availability to get on, video to evaluate yourself as an official. If we could put a quarter and a score in there for you to go back and look at, film usually doesn't lie. So the best part is not only to have, us in your backside to help, but also evaluate yourself on how you can get better.
So with this evaluation form, the court coverage as the trail, center official, lead official, Mike, how much do you rely on the NFHS mechanics manual to compare, are the officials doing what they're supposed to be doing according to that manual?
Well, I go by the manual, and I go by what the rule book says. And I'd like to see a center official. John Higgins told me once he thought the most important position on the floor is the center official, because he can give the most help. But and that's where I'd like to see the center official, the trail official, get down there and help work. I think a lot of guys sometimes are afraid that they're going to get beat coming back the other way, so they might hang out as a trail official. But if you can, when the ball goes the other side, get down there and help work out, and trying to help on the rebounds. But I pretty much go by what's on the sheet and what you're supposed to be doing, because it's the small things that need to be done right that you don't realize.
Sly, is there one part of this observation form that you either focus on the most or you see us officials can improve on the most?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. Preliminary signals, I usually track those. Um, I will have my own little tracking method that I use, and I'll let you know how many fouls you call, um, how many how many preliminaries. If you provide preliminaries, I'll let you know that as well. And I do understand that, you know, we're not going to get them every time, but my goal is to try to just to remind you of it. Um, for the new officials, what I would tell you that I was told a long time ago, practice in front of the mirror. That's kind of the basic. Um, Jeff had mentioned huddle. That is another good tool to, watch yourself, perform. Um, I think all the games are on huddle now, so there shouldn't be any excuse. Um, one of the other things, press coverage. Sometimes what I see is that the new lead is too deep, and if you're doing it, I mean, it's self-explanatory right there in the book. The trail, the new lead just should only be a couple steps behind the deepest player. Let's see what else. Dead ball officiating. Uh, when there's a jump ball, fouls being reported. Just want to make sure that the other two officials are watching other players. And then also when reporting your fouls, making sure you get to the right spot. A lot of times I see officials, they start reporting right below the free throw line extended, or they never run to the spot as required by uh, the officials manual. So everything is right there. If you follow that, you're going to be right on point. So,
Sean, I'd like to mention one other thing I forgot to mention. If an official has a blowout game, and I would just recommend, and I hope everybody does this, but I've seen cases where it hasn't happened. Finish the game, finish calling the game. Just because it's out of hand, don't pass on something that you'd normally get earlier. I mean, these kids practice all the time, and if they deserve to go the free throw or whatever it might be, but finish the game. It's important to those kids.
Yep.
Hey guys, can I? Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna add one thing to that. As observers to officials, and I am one, have been one, which is irrelevant except to this point. Work every single game as if you're being evaluated. Every single game. There's been many a time when I've gone to a gym and people did not have that mindset, and it was amazing how the switch went. Like, okay, and I'm going, all right. So now if we wouldn't have came in at halftime, which I don't like to do, but sometimes you just have to, don't get caught into that cycle. That's not where you want to be, okay? Because if you're taking that game off, it's not fair to the kids, the coaches, and fans that are there. Thanks, John.
Go ahead, John.
Yes. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up, and it kind of plays into what Jeff just said. We had a clinic the other day in Omaha, and we talked a little bit about how we officiate girls' games compared to how we officiate boys' games, and the importance of those girls' games. You might have the boys' game afterwards, and maybe the effort that we give in those games. And so I think that is an important thing. And I know some of our evaluators will go in to maybe at halftime of the girls' game, watch half of the girls' game and watch half of the boys' game. What's interesting is all of our evaluators kind of do a little bit different, and they all have a great way of doing it. And so I think, for me to know that people like the girls' game is just as important as the boys' game. And we just heard that, those kids work hard, those coaches work hard. Well, the girls deserve good officials just like the boys do. And Sean, you're probably going to ask me later how we pick people to work the postseason. And I've actually had people call me and say, well, why am I only working girls games? And my advice to them is don't ever make that phone call to me. Because the girls deserve just as good officials as the boys do. Our class D2 kids deserve just as good officials as our class A and B kids do. And so when we talk about those things, I think it's important to remember kind of what Jeff just touched on, like, and Mike did too, about working the game till the end, and that every kid deserves a great official. And if you're that great official, doesn't matter if you're at Omaha West Side or if you're at Weeping Water, like you're there to work the game, and those games are very important to everybody involved.
Well said.
Absolutely. I learned a long time ago, just as an assigner for Dick Morsey, he goes, I would rather have an average official who wants to be there over a great official who doesn't want to be there. So I just wrote down a note, work every game like you are being observed, and work every game that you do want to be there and work. Transitioning now to the state tournament. So observers, when you're down at the state tournament, what is your role down there, and how is your mindset different of what you're doing during the regular season versus now the state tournament down there as a representative of NSAA? So Mike, why don't we start with you?
Well, there's a reason those guys are at the state tournament, because they know how to work. And we're just there to observe, I think, how they work with each other, because they're graded kind of or recommended back to John as a crew. And so how they work together, how they handle the coaches, how they communicate with players, their partners, and to the coaches. And so I think, and the consistency and how, I guess, when you don't work with somebody, and I hope this doesn't happen to veteran officials, but you have a tendency sometimes maybe not to trust your partner. Well, trust your partner and work your area and work just like you have all year, because that's how you got there. And so I think and then we report back to John what we saw or who we liked or who we didn't like, and then John makes the decision.
All right, Jeff?
Yeah. Every official that has the opportunity or gets the opportunity to work in a state tournament obviously has earned that. With that being said, that's the highest stage, no matter what level that you're going to be working on. So the expectations that you have during the year, if you're doing everything right, they now go up another level. Doesn't matter what class you're working, it's happening. All the eyes are on you, and quite frankly, the NSAA. So if you've represented yourself all year and you come in there, and Mike hit on it too, whether you're coming as a crew, which doesn't always happen that much anymore. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But hopefully with the consistency that's going through the officiating ring, a person can step right in and be able to handle those moments. Some of the things I guess I'll look at or talk about when I'm down there myself is I look at the mechanics, the positioning, communication, movement, and consistency. How are we hitting on all phases of this? And when you're at that highest, level of work, which is down at the state tournament, I like to go through the whole game, and I have my book. To be honest with you, we'll highlight some plays that may have taken place, and then we like to do a debriefing in the locker room afterwards to get officials' feedback. How do they handle in their post game communication with each other, and then some possible recommendations, some maybe shouldn't haves, some great stuff, all those things that go together. Because to be honest with you, at the end of the day, it's the little things, and I know Mike said this too, and I think Sly did. It's the little things to make the big things easy. If you're consistently doing the little things, the big things will be easy, and the moment won't get too big for you. The last thing I'm going to put in there is a caveat. It's a privilege and it's an honor to be selected and deserved. So for those people that are there doing those little things, you made it for a reason. Now prove yourself the next year to get better. It's always easy to get there. It's tougher to stay at that level.
Absolutely. Sly, how do you take your time down at the state tournament to observe and evaluate?
Well, I just basically try to make sure that all the officials that I look at are on the same page. If I see something that I could, bring to their attention, I'll make that be known, whether be court coverage, whether they're using the proper mechanics, or whether they're, communicating with the coaches, whether they're keeping the coaches in the boxes. So as Jeff and Mike say, that's a big stage down there. It's an honor and a privilege to be working down there. So we just want to make sure that area officials are looking that part because they are on the big stage. So.
And then, John, this is the hard question. You have all these observation forms that are filled out for you to take a look at. You have observers at every game at the state tournament. How is it that you organize this information to make your selections for postseason, not only for last season, but this upcoming season and maybe even seasons in the future?
Yeah. So our the selection process, and I'll even touch a little bit on our district, our sub-district and district tournament selections. I always liken it to trying to put a 1,000-piece puzzle together without a picture. And that's probably the most accurate description I can give because it's that hard. I rely a lot on my observers across the state. I get to watch a lot of basketball either in person or, believe it or not, I watch a lot of Stride, YouTube, just games when I can be at home and watch. And I watch the officials, and I try to know names, try to know who people are. It's the biggest challenge because we have almost 1,000 officials for boys and girls basketball, and so to know all those people, that's a challenge. But again, it's one of those things where I look at it and take in the opinions of my observers. We also have ballots that our coaches rank our officials on, and so that's an important piece of it. It's not the end all be all with what we look at, but our coaches do vote, and I will tell you, they do know officiating, and so I look at all of that. Our state tournaments changed a little bit in the last few years. We used to bring in 36 officials, and we would just assign the state tournament that way. We now do it over 4 days, and so we pre-assign every game, and so we've tried to give more opportunities to people so that we're understanding, whether it's geography or level of play that they're officiating. We're trying to give those people those opportunities. And then when we watch them at the state tournament in that moment, we either say that they can succeed or, maybe that was the biggest moment that they could be and work a first round game instead of a semifinal game. And so those are the things that we look at. I bring the observers down. My first couple years in the office, I didn't have anybody helping me out. And so it was a little bit of a challenge to run the state basketball tournament and also try to evaluate the officials. And so one of the things that I've tried to do is be good at what I am, and that's running the state basketball tournament. And I bring in the observers to help me evaluate the officials so that we can make the best decisions we can for not only the officials, but for the kids and the schools and the games that are going on. And that's their job when they're there and they give me the input. I get to make the decisions when it comes down to it. But ultimately, I have great people that help me, and we have great officials across the state. And you know what? We get some of it right, we get some of it wrong, and ultimately, it's one of those things where, you know what? When you get down there, like they talked about that environment and that moment, it's a big moment. And some people they knock it out of the park, and some people don't. And I get their input after every state tournament on what we need to do different for the next year. So we're looking already for this year. It will help out with our evaluations on that point. And then we'll keep working to get it right, because we want to provide the best opportunity for our officials, and also for our kids and our communities.
Good insight there. We're on our last part of the agenda here. And I just want to remind those of you who are on live, the live chat is there. So if you have any questions you would like to ask any of the state observers, make sure you put that in the chat, because then I will go back to that chat before we end this meeting. But the last thing we want to talk about here, and some of this might be already stated in this meeting, but for each observer, if you could give the officials on this meeting 2 tips to stand out to be considered for postseason selection, what are the 2 tips that you would suggest when you go out and observe? So Jeff, what are 2 tips from you?
Well, I'll see if I can stick to 2. You know me, Sean. So, I would say one tip I'm going to put in is manage the game. You're not there to call the game. You're there to manage the game at whatever level it may be. And remember that no matter where you go, somebody's always watching, whether it's in person, on video, or off the court. So to be the best, you got to do more than the rest.
Very good. Mike?
I would say hustle, judgment. I'm going to give 3. And your body language. Always hustle and always use the best judgment you can and make it look like you want to be there.
Sly?
I would say look the part. Make sure you got the proper uniform. If you need to buy new shirts, new pants, new shoes, make sure everything is properly taken care of. And, make sure your whistles are strong. Strong mechanics. If the mechanics are strong, you're going to look strong. So, yeah.
And then John, for state tournament championship games, what are 2 tips for those officials?
Yeah, communicate and be professional. And I think that comes hand in hand. Just communicate and be official. Or communicate and be professional. We had numerous clinics we put on this year, and one of the things that coaches always talk about is the communication part. I think the professionalism. You know what? We're under a lot of scrutiny, and it's very easy to be negative about things. But continue to be professional. If there's something that happens, let me know about it. We'll deal with it. And then the one thing that I will always say is call fouls. I think the one thing that coaches and kids, and the thing that helps the game of basketball out, we changed the rule this year where we're doing we got rid of the 1-on-1. We're doing 5 fouls. We shoot 2. No more 1-on-1. Call the foul. If it's there, call it. The game of basketball is not football. It's not rugby. And I think the more fouls that we can call, if they're there, we don't have to go looking for them. They happen, I promise you. But the more that we do those things, the better off we're going to be, and the game will get called the way it's supposed to, and kids and coaches will adjust to that. So I appreciate what all of our officials do, and the time and the commitment that they put in to help our kids play games, because without officials, we can't play games. So thank you to all that are watching this, and Sean, for you putting this on. You do a phenomenal job of promoting officiating and educating people on the officiating piece of it. So thank you for that. And I know that the 3 guys on here tonight, they're going to help our officials get better this year. And I know if there's anything that you need from any of us, let us know, Sean, and we'll be able to hop back on here this year and communicate with you for whatever.
Well, I look forward to that opportunity. Guys, once again, I can't thank you enough for taking time out today to give your perspectives and your side of the table, being state observers and evaluators. I hope the officials, number 1, learned a few items, and number 2, realized how much of us doing our job allows you to do your job, and us working together makes the game better for everybody involved. As we close this meeting, if you're listening to this, make sure you come back, you like and subscribe the YouTube channel. We are putting out daily rules questions for basketball now, daily shorts with basketball plays, and weekly training tapes. So observers, when you go out, if you could help spread the message of what we do to promote the sports officiating game of basketball, I think the more consistency that we have with common language, common mechanics, will lead to less unsporting behavior throughout the year. So that's really one of my goals with this. And we did get a thank you from Terry and Zaldo for all three observers of giving back to us officials. So thank you, Terry and Zaldo, for that comment. Any final words before we end the meeting, guys?
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Have fun while you're out there.
Enjoy the moment. There's all good ones.
First impressions are huge. Week 1's coming up. Officials, remember, you're only as good as your last call.